We often talk about the fun sides of travel and how exciting it can be to go to different countries and experience new cultures, but we don't often hear about the downsides and how exhausting travel can actually be and how frustrating it is when things don't go to plan. On my most recent trip to Athens, Greece, I experienced one of the most difficult travel days I've probably had in over 30 years of travel. Let me tell you about it.
The morning I left for my trip, traffic was just awful. I'm one of those people that usually likes to get to the airport 2 to 3 hours early, especially if I had lounge access, but today the traffic in Los Angeles just wasn't cooperating. I arrived at the airport about 11:30, and I was able to check in pretty quickly. Once I dropped my bags off, I headed upstairs through security and straight to the new American Express Centurion Lounge. I was very excited to try out the lounge, but I was severely disappointed. After one of the longest walks in history, I finally made it to the terminal. If you haven't been to the Tom Bradley terminal at LAX since the new renovation, there is a lot to see, but it is also quite a walk from security to the gates. I was hanging out at the gate when I heard my name being called over the loudspeaker. I went up to the counter and was told that there was a problem with the seat that I had chosen and that instead of taking the KLM flight, I was being put on the Air France flight through Paris with a 9-hour layover instead of the original 3-hour layover that I had planned in Amsterdam. I was a little disappointed and a little irritated because not only was I going to have a much longer layover than I had originally intended, but instead of arriving in Athens at 4:30 p.m., I now wouldn't be arriving until after 11 p.m. Flying solo, I definitely made a conscious choice to not arrive at the location after dark, and this was going to change everything. At this point, there was nothing I could do about it, so I settled in and decided to enjoy the ride. I was never really able to get comfortable or to fall asleep. For the most part, the food was pretty good. I ended up just eating a little bit of everything, and then I settled in for the night, watched a few movies, and before I knew it, we were 30 minutes out from Paris. I was still a little perturbed about this long layover, and I know what you're thinking. Girl, you're in Paris. Get over yourself. But I wasn't really in Paris. I was in the Paris airport for 9 hours. I made my way to the Air France lounge where I stayed, I believe, for about 7 hours. All of the sleeping pods were taken and I was just never able to get comfortable. So I eventually decided to just go out and roam around the airport for a little bit. Eventually, I made my way to the gate. By the time the flight took off, I was so utterly exhausted, I didn't even record anything about it. They did serve food on the plane, but it wasn't that great. There were no TVs, and I had slept a grand total of 3 hours in 24 hours. So by the time I arrived in Athens, it was after 11 p.m., and it was almost 1 a.m. by the time I actually got to my hotel. I realized today that travel teaches you patience. I left the cruise ship this morning about 9:30 a.m. I arrived at the airport. No, that's not true. I left around 9 a.m. I arrived at the airport a little before 10. When I got to the baggage drop, I realized that it wasn't open yet.
there was no staff there. So there was a woman who worked for the airport who called and then told us that the staff would be arriving between 11 and 11:30. So I was hungry. I hadn't eaten breakfast. I was thirsty. So I just went and got some chips and I got some water and I just sat for a little while and then I walked back. Thankfully, I walked back a little bit before 11 and within maybe 10 minutes, the staff arrived. The line was not pretty long, maybe 20 people or so were in line in front of me. So it just probably took me about 30-40 minutes to get through bag drop and get to the terminal. Another thing I learned is that if you're going from one country to another within the Schengen zone, you don't have to go through customs. So when I arrived, I went through customs in Paris. And when I arrived in Greece, I just walked right out the airport. I got my bag and I walked right out the door. I never saw customs. I never talked to anyone. I never showed my passport. I never got my passport stamped. I just walked into the country like it was a domestic flight. And then when I left, it was basically the same thing. I was going to coming here to Amsterdam, which is within the Schengen zone. So again, I never went through customs. I showed my passport to the gate agent when I got ready to board the flight. But other than that, I have not seen customs. When I arrived in Amsterdam, I walked right out the door. So that was a new experience that I hadn't had before. So I basically waited from 10 a.m. this morning until my flight departed at 5:48 and it was 20 minutes late. So it was a 3.5 hour flight from Athens to Amsterdam. Got to Amsterdam and the jet bridge was broken. So we sat on the plane for about 20 minutes and then they told us that they were going to have to bring the stairs to the back of the plane and we had to exit through the back of the plane and walk down the stairs, walk across the tarmac, and then walk up the stairs to get into the terminal. So luckily, my bags were checked all the way through and I knew that. So I just packed a change of clothes in my carry-on. And so I was able to just walk right out and catch the shuttle to the hotel here. So I used some points and got this, I forgot the name of it. I'll insert it because I don't remember. I'm tired. But it's a part of the Marriott chain and it's a really, really nice hotel. My room was upgraded when I got here. And so my only real complaint is that there are quite a few restaurants in the hotel, but I'm so tired. I don't feel like going to sit in a restaurant or get food for takeaway. So I ordered room service, but the room service menu consists of like 6 items. So I ended up ordering pad thai. So I'm waiting for that to arrive now, $25. So you have that, but I'm just so tired. I'm so tired. It's been a really long day. It's after 9 o'clock and my flight leaves at 9:50 in the morning. So I'm just going to eat as much as I can, try to go to sleep pretty soon after to get up around 6:30 to head back to the airport. So I think this will be good because I leave here at 9:50 in the morning and then I arrive in LA at around 11:50 in the morning. So I think I should be able, if I get enough rest tonight, I should be able to stay up on the flight because sleeping is just so uncomfortable in a plane, even if you're in lie flat seats. I upgraded my flight coming home to premium economy. So it's not the 3, it's like 2 larger seats. And I think they have a little bit more of a recline, but it's not a bed. All in all, it was a wonderful trip. I loved Greece. I will definitely return. I loved Athens and the history. The people were really nice. I really loved Mykonos, and I would like to go back and explore that a little bit more. but it's just really, really far.